Hi, my name is Quincy Simpson, and this is my self-reflection presentation video for COM 351. In the following video, I'm going to be talking about the social judgment theory, which was developed by Muzaffar Sherif, along with his colleagues Caroline Sherif and Carl Hovland. The theory was created in the early 1960s, specifically around 1961 in the book Social Judgment. Is the theory traditionally objective or interpretive, and why? So, the social judgment theory is traditionally considered an objective theory because it relies on quantifiable, measurable attitudes and behavior, and it aims to protect how people respond to persuasive messages based on their existing attitudes, using specific methods and empirical research. A brief overview of the theory is that it explains how people evaluate persuasive messages based on their existing attitudes, which have been organized into 3 different latitudes. So I'm going to just say that latitudes here, and then later on in the video I'm going to go over what each of those latitudes would think of the case study I provide. But first latitude is the latitude of acceptance, then the latitude of rejection, and lastly the latitude of non-commitment. Some key ideas to include when thinking about this theory are that people are more likely to be persuaded if the new idea falls into their latitude of acceptance. Messages in the latitude of rejection may cause a contrast effect, making them seem even more extreme. Messages in the latitude of acceptance may cause assimilation effect, seeming closer to the person's views than they actually are. The stronger a person's stance or ego involvement, the narrower their latitude of acceptance and the harder they're going to be to persuade. Okay, next up I'm going to talk about my case study, which involves vaccine messaging and public persuasion. So, for a little background, a public health department wants to increase COVID-19 vaccination rates in a community where many people are hesitant. They create a campaign targeting the general public, but the results are mixed. Some people respond positively, while others reject the message entirely. Here is how the social judgment theory would be applied to this situation. Since some individuals are already supporting vaccination, for them, pro-vaccine falls into their latitude of acceptance, making it easy to persuade them. Others may be undecided, and their messages would fall into the latitude of non-commitment, making them persuadable with moderate facts and appeals. A third group is strongly opposed. For them, the same message falls into their latitude of rejection and is dismissed or even triggers a boomerang effect, which would make them more resistant in the end. The second overall topic in the case study is message adjustment based on ego involvement. The department realizes that heavily pro-vaccine messages create a contrast effect for the resistant group, making the message seem more extreme. So they test a new approach. They focused on shared values, like protecting family or returning to normal life, to move the message closer to their audience's latitude of acceptance, as it's easier to persuade people who are in their latitude of acceptance area. Outcome. After tailoring the message, more vaccine-hesitant individuals began to reconsider their stance. The campaign uses incremental shifts instead of direct persuasion, gradually moving people through their latitudes toward acceptance. Overall, this case shows how the social judgment theory helps communication and communicators analyze audience attitudes and design messaging that minimizes resistance and maximizes persuasion. Now that I've gone over about my theory, which was the social judgment theory, as well as my case study and the implications of that, I'm going to kind of reflect on the class overall and what I was able to learn this semester. So the first question was to tell theories you wrote about in your theory papers and which one you think is the most useful for you in your own life to help you explain communication and behavior. The first theory I wrote a paper on was the agenda setting theory, and then cognitive dissonance, and lastly, the social penetration theory. I personally think that the social penetration theory will be the most relevant to me in my everyday life, simply for the fact that It talks a lot about social media and what you're choosing to share with your audience, and I feel like I'm experiencing this every day in my current generation, also wanting to work in the media, and that could just be from watching social media every day or creating my own content to put out there in the audience I'm aiming for. The second question was, having learned about various communication theories this semester, reflect on your introduction paper. Do you still think you view research through the same objective or interpretive lens? Why or why not? I do think that I see research still through a more objective lens, but I feel I'm more open-minded now that I've taken the course. I feel like, kind of like I talked in my introduction paper, I've just always been like a very black and white person when it comes to how I think, what I view as right or wrong. Like, it's very 100% or nothing, and I feel like that just aligns more with the objective ideology because it's all proof, as in like facts, logic, evidence, seeing things for yourself to believe they're true, rather than thinking there's context behind the layers, which I feel like I jump more towards objective. But this course is good for me because it made me take a break and try and lean more towards the interpretive route as well. The next point was discuss 2 potential advantages of the other lens. Even though you might not see communication and theorizing through this lens, why it's important. For interpretive, I think you get a deeper understanding of the human experience, and you're able to emotionally process more with that way of thinking, as well as there is much more flexibility and more insights when using that approach. The next thing is theorizing often creates just as many questions as it does answers. Include 2 questions that you still have about theorizing communication and how you may use theorizing to help you potentially answer them in the future. The questions I put down were, how do cultural backgrounds influence the way people interpret the same message differently? As well as, what makes some persuasive messages succeed while others using similar logic completely fail? These are both very interesting to me, and though I feel like we dived into some aspects of these questions in the course, we definitely didn't get full answers to all of that, and it's intriguing to me. And the last question is, how can you apply the information you learned about the theories we covered theorizing this semester to your life outside of school? Describe one way. I feel that I was able to improve my business communication as well as improve my communication in relationships overall. I feel like it taught me a lot about connecting to people and how to make sure that you both are understanding the same thing and there's no type of miscommunication between you. And I was very intrigued by learning everything about that. Overall, I'm very thankful that I took this course and for you being such a good teacher through it. And I feel like I learned a lot that I will be able to continue with me through my communication career. Thank you.